and I'm going to believe that's true, that right now I am live. So we're going to be talking about some of the political ramifications and stuff that's going on in the world and whatnot with this with some of the new stuff that's happening with some of the new cycles. And we're, there's quite a bit, happening here in the U.S. We have this, huge things that just opened up, that just happened with impeachment. They've formally opened up some major impeachment of Trump. Finally, maybe gone too long. Oh, you see the chart of Rudy Giuliani is here. We're going to be looking at his chart, looking at Trump's chart right here, looking at some of these transits. So we're going to get into it. Those of you who are going to be triggered by truth and observable fact, you might want to leave, because I am going to be speaking honestly and directly about these things. I'm not going to be, trying to be politically correct or being afraid to speak the truth. Before I even talk about this, it's a good place to start, because there's this illusion these days, because there's so many people who are really sort of hypnotized and under the kind of sway or swoon of, I'm just going to speak about Trump quite a bit here, of him, and that they're so numb to frankly, there's kind of the insanity that is coming from our government now, and the things that have been normalized, which are not even close to normal. The constant lying. I mean, even in the last few days, he's threatened people, as treasonous because they're doing their job. That would be like Adam Schiff saying his treason, trying to out whistleblowers. These are protected people. Donald Trump breaks more crimes, it seems, in a week than, brazenly and openly than any president I've ever seen in my lifetime, without a doubt. And it's just normalized. And so again, there are people who, no matter what he does, they're in thrall. And that's not the way I'm going to be speaking here. To speak about these things openly and to just say, like, for example, threatening, someone, or as the president calling them, treasonous, or, these kinds of things. When's the last time you heard Barack Obama do that, or George Bush, or Clinton, or any other? You just never heard this before, because it's simply not done. Again, there are saying that just flat, just openly is not, oh, you're supposed to be you're supposed to be unbiased. There's nothing that's unbiased about speaking the truth. Okay, the truth is not biased or unbiased. The bias comes when people refuse to see the truth. Someone just said, I'm from Europe and focus on politics. Well, I do live in the U.S. I'm going to focus on this. I'm glad you think it's friendly advice. Wonderful. I don't live in Europe. I don't know the politics so well. And I don't have ultimate bandwidth to research everything. So, Lucy, that's just the way that is. Okay. So, but anyway, the point is that you should understand this whole idea, at least what I've seen and what I've been talking about since Rahu went into Gemini. Since Rahu went into Gemini, I started saying that one of the biggest things that we were going to be looking at is seeing the truth directly, and seeing it and calling it out and recognizing it. And not just being in our silos and in our, comfort zones, and being able, to see beyond our, beliefs. And this thing with, not just with Trump, but other leaders, other ideologies, will be pressured now. It's going to be pressured. We're going to see the truth. The truth will be revealed, and it will be harder to maintain these illusions. Also because of Saturn Ketu going through Sagittarius, which are destroying our beliefs. They're destroying our beliefs in the dear leader. Or let's say we had this belief. Let's just use Trump as an example. We had this belief that, okay, he's here to, blow up the system and be a transformer, and that's just his nature. Okay, that's fine. But at some point, when the truth gets revealed and you see, okay, it's not just that. This person is self-dealing all the time. His personal family is on the take. You see, even in the call, in the recent whistleblower call, and the call that he had with the Ukrainian leader, that the Ukrainian leader is, oh, and Mr. Trump, we also stayed in your hotels. And let's not forget, the 15 scandals we were talking about a couple weeks ago, where there are members of the military staying in his hotels all around the world, Mike Pence staying in his hotels that taxpayers are paying for. The level of corruption that we have never seen anywhere, not just in my lifetime, in the history of the presidency. This has just become normalized, and there's a segment of the population of the U.S. who has just completely shut down their faculties of discrimination. If Barack Obama or any other president had done anything like this, people's heads would be exploding, including Republicans in the Senate and whatnot. And in the House, they've just turned over their mind and their discrimination to this individual. And we're seeing a lot of that break right now. And this is a big part of what is happening right now with these transits through with Rahu going through Gemini and going through Ardra Nakshatra, and also Saturn Ketu. Saturn is now moving forward. By the way, the name of this video, so those who are going to be upset about this is too political, whatever, look at the title of the video. I did say it. So I am going to be talking about politics, impeachment, justice, those kinds of things. So you're free to leave, and that's fine too. Maybe come back for another video. But right now, with all of these shifts that are happening, we can see here, I'll pull up this one, that right now we have Rahu at 19. It's now in Ardra. You can go back and look and see. I did a video a couple weeks ago, about when Rahu goes into Ardra. I also talked about Trump in particular because he has his Mercury in Ardra. And I even said this could be really, really damaging, transforming. And if you thought his speech and his thing was all over the place, wait until Rahu goes over his Mercury. Go back and watch the video where I talked about Rahu and Ardra. And lo and behold, I mean, I mentioned it in the video that there was going to be impeachment. I think they had just started talking about it more, but I even said that there could be some very powerful secret disclosures come out. Not shocking at all that they did. Again, in Trump's chart, when he was born, you can see his Mercury is in Ardra at 15 degrees. And here's the transit chart. Ardra is 19 degrees. His chart, his Mercury is at 15 degrees. So Rahu is going to get closer and closer to his Mercury in Ardra, and it's going to get more and more. There are going to be more and more disclosures, more and more is going to be revealed, as we can already see what's already happened so far in in this whistleblower scandal so far, which is, it's just getting started. It's only been about a week. It's this totally credible event that happened. There's a legal process for reporting these things. Again, let's be very clear. The alternative to a whistleblower is someone like Edward Snowden, who goes to the press. Look at what happened to Edward Snowden. Again, Edward Snowden could have gone to the press and just showed all this stuff to the press, and that would have been another way to do it. But this whistleblower went through the legal means of seeing that there's corruption. Now, again, you have to understand the way this process goes. Some of this I'm just going to explain this really quick, but this whole idea, especially for those who are, just totally hypnotized by Trump, and no matter what he does, they think it's deep state or whatever it is that he says, any crazy thing he says to explain how our legal system works, is that someone in the White House, or who is involved with transcribing these calls and who understands this, had credible numerous occurrences that calls were problematic, that people in the White House were hiding these transcriptions, that there were other ones that were on secret servers, and this whole thing that was going on. And you present this whistleblower, it's anonymous, and you then present it to who's called the DNI, which is the Director of National Intelligence, it's the IG, who is the Inspector General of the Justice Department. So it's a total legal reference where you go and present your case to the IG, which is the Inspector General in the Justice Department. By the way, these are Trump appointees. Again, this whole thing that's these Democrats and all, none of this is true. This is just more of his silliness and insanity, frankly. I think he's lost his mind, and I think he has for a while. But the whistleblower went to the IG, the Inspector General. The Inspector General looked at the whistleblower complaint, saw that it was totally credible. Again, investigated it. Then what happens is the IG forwards it to the DNI, which is the Director of National Intelligence, just to show him this, and then the DNI is supposed to forward it immediately to the Gang of Eight, which are the oversight bodies in the House and Senate. What happened is the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, did not do it. So this whistleblower process started, and it was not followed through. So Adam Schiff, who's the chairman, said that there is a whistleblower complaint that is not been followed through on, and that it needs to be investigated. And so he went to subpoena the person, and this is where we are now, where this whistleblower has been found to be extremely credible, and now we have this situation. So these are totally credible complaints. It's a legal process, and then they released a summary which has totally shown and borne out its findings that the whistleblower put forth. It on the call, it shows very clearly this, what appears to be a hey, we want to buy your weapons. Okay, well, I need a favor from you. Investigate Biden and blah, blah. Again, then it's all of the smokescreen about what happened with Biden's son. All of that is irrelevant at this point. If it's a separate issue, it's a separate issue. But again, this desire to want to distract, which was immediately his instinct, it's not going to work this time. So part of the reason I'm talking about this now is this is very different, because it's not going to work this time, because this is too cut and dry. This is too clean and clear. And there is no way to muddy the water here, because there is so much there are so many different sort of tentacles. For example, there seems to be evidence that there were other calls with other world leaders that haven't been released. You have Rudy Giuliani, the president's personal attorney, out there admitting that he's conducting business on behalf of the U.S. foreign policy. Rudy Giuliani, the president's personal attorney, is supposedly going to another country and trying to get their leaders to investigate a private citizen in the again, there is so much wrong with this that not a single senator or congressman or whatever will be able to hold back and admit that this is okay if things follow through with the way they seem to look. At this point, they do not. This does not look good. Just from the basic, like, wow, this is really bad. And if this evidence plays out even remotely the way it could, or the way it looks like it is likely going to play out, it's going to be devastating. Again, there's nothing really that complicated if they're moving things, and of course, what I didn't even say yet is all the cover-up behind all of this. If there's clear evidence of cover-ups and obfuscating, and like, again, if Pompeo was involved and William Barr, the Attorney General, was involved, and they were all trying to hide these damaging phone calls because Trump is on the phone with the leader of Saudi Arabia, maybe talking about hotel deals or other crazy stuff that personally benefits Trump. And then the people hearing these calls go, man, we got to hide this crap. This is damaging. We can't have transcripts of this. So they hide it on a private server, or he's talking to Putin saying God knows what about God knows what. Again, this is just, if you get the Attorney General also involved, which could clearly be the case with the way William Barr has acted. William Barr is acting like Trump's personal attorney. He's the Attorney General of the United States. He works for us, not the president. So if he is obstructing justice, again, Rudy Giuliani, who knows what this guy is doing. Now, again, here's what you can watch for very soon with Rahu Mercury. Rahu going over Mercury. It's not just Trump. It's Trump's White House. But here's what we're going to see, and we're going to definitely see it here very soon. It's already starting, but it's going to go way overboard. You're going to see Trump attacking Rudy Giuliani. Trump is already going, I don't know, ask Rudy. I don't know what he was doing. Rudy Giuliani saying, I did it at the behest of the Justice Department. The Justice Department saying, I don't know what Rudy Giuliani's talking about. All of this, what happens is when the rats start attacking each other, then it gets really, really bad. And there's some conversations going on about whether Trump will get impeached or not. I don't know. And I'm not making a prediction that the Republicans will actually vote, but I will say that it will get harder and harder to not do that if this evidence plays out even anywhere near what it might look like at this point. Especially, this has only been about a week or 10 days, and it's already like popping and blowing up. And you're already also seeing Republicans, Mitch McConnell, surprisingly, like, well, if they pass impeachment in the House, we have to vote on it in the Senate. Who knows? We got to look at the evidence. Definitely not coming out like you would expect. The other thing to notice, what happened last week, once this popped, Trump came out and said, I met with whatever is the Kevin McCarthy. I met with Senate and House leaders, and we're in agreement that I have to make the transcripts public. What does that mean? That means the Republicans in House and Senate were saying, we're not going to cover you on this. You need to make this public. Because if they would have covered him, Trump would have said, I met with McCarthy and McConnell, and we agree. It's just a witch hunt, blah, blah. He's not been saying so much witch hunt about this. He does not have the Republican cover on this already, and it just started. So you watch and see. This is going to be very different. This is highly criminal, and it could blow up really quick. It's much less ambiguous. Now, again, I'm not sure. I mean, let's see what happens. There's going to be a lot of chum in the water. There's going to be a lot of ways to obfuscate and confuse, but I'm talking about what we've already seen. Could be very, very different than what we saw with the other investigations. And one second. This one second here. Yeah, and so this whole idea, and again, the alternative narrative is that, again, this whole propaganda about it's just the deep state out to get them, blah, 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 blah. Again, none of this is true. Again, if you want to live in an alternate universe, fairy tale universe, live in your fairy tale universe, but it's just not true. This is a whistleblower complaint. It's not deep state conspiracy. These are Trump appointees. This is the legal system. Look, if anybody has benefited from people looking the other way and not paying attention and letting the emperor run around naked with no clothes for 2.5 years, it's Trump. I'm telling you, people who are just hypnotized by anything this guy does and anything he says and calling it deep state without any kind of fashioning of what that even means. If you're going to say this kind of stuff, then you explain to me how it works. Explain to me exactly what's actually going on instead of just saying deep state. And again, this is just a way to check out of the conversation rather than be. Look, and then it's, again, this whole stuff, Joe Biden's son, rather than focus on Trump. Look, if you're really into this thing, then you just don't want to use your brain. I'm sorry, but I'm just going to say it. This is another issue. By the way, it was investigated. It was investigated in Ukraine. You can't just bypass all of this stuff, okay? By the way, Biden isn't president, and that's not what's being talked about here. And if people want to investigate that, that's a separate thing. This is the kind of stuff that is going to try to get some traction. Maybe it will get traction, especially if people don't want to actually think about this and they want to just listen and not think about what is going on in the White House right now and how much this is undermining and how much this corruption is at the heart of what is going on. Again, this whole thing about just calling this deep state especially without understanding that these systems are in place. If there's a deep state, it's not against Trump, it's for Trump. Especially with Attorney General Barr and this whole cover-up that's been going on. So anyway, the point of the matter is, with Rahu going through Gemini, we're going to see this thing pop and explode even more. And we'll see what happens when Rahu starts to separate from Ketu and then Jupiter goes into Sagittarius. And we could definitely see where more and more of this comes out. We could see a sense of whatever justice looks like, maybe it'll still be muddied and confused with Jupiter and Ketu together. There's going to be a relentless focus here. By the way, I do know how impeachment works. And impeachment is voted on in the House. Clinton was impeached. He wasn't removed because the trial in the Senate didn't remove him. What I'm saying right now, I'll just say it like this. As this, quote, trial in the House, or I'm sorry, as the information gathering in the House goes forward, I think we're going to see so much more things that are so much more damaging than a lot of people think right now. Right now, the conventional wisdom is that, oh, you can't impeach because the Senate will never, because the Senate will never convict him. I don't think this is necessarily true at all at this point. I don't think that's necessarily true at all. Because we're just at the beginning of this, and there is so much that is going to be coming out about this that we already can see. Listen, look at this clown show. Rudy Giuliani and Trump. I mean, you can just see the level, the feverish meltdown that's happening. And we haven't even started with this. Who knows where this is going to go? You have these people, what's his name, who just resigned last week, who was the envoy. I forgot his name. But he quit as soon as he saw Giuliani going, oh, the Justice Department told me to do everything. This guy quit and said, I'm out of here. And this guy's testifying. This is going to get blown wide open. Let's see these. By the way, maybe in the Senate they won't vote to actually impeach. That could very well be the case. But let's get these people on record. Let's see, this evidence that's going to come out is going to be so compelling. And we're going to see clearly and forcefully what's been happening. So yeah, I think this should have been opened months ago, especially over all the obstruction of justice that was shown in the Mueller investigation. There were so many counts of it. But okay, they waited until now. We're going to see this come out. So with Rahu going over Trump's Mercury, we're seeing this more and more. There's going to be more disclosures, more of his erratic, wild speech, which we already see. I think there was 120 tweets over the weekend. Again, I'm just going to say this to those of you who are like, if there are people watching this, hopefully they've left, or if they want to sit here and just get upset. Are you proud of your president that tweets like a lunatic? I mean, he spends more time on Twitter than a 13-year-old girl. I mean, this is the president. This is the president of the United States, retweeting all day long. He spends his whole life on Twitter, retweeting, threatening people on Twitter. Again, this is just normal now. And again, so the people that have become complicit in this and who act like, Sam, you're the most biased astrologer in the world because you call this out. Give me a break. I mean, really. And there's not many that listen to this video or videos like this who say that. But those who do, just step back for a minute and imagine if that were Barack Obama spending his whole presidency on Twitter, attacking his political rivals and threatening whistleblowers and calling, the congressman who investigated him treasonous, because there were congressmen who did nothing but investigate Barack Obama his entire presidency, all 8 years, constant investigations. Constant investigations. What if what if Obama would have spent the whole time just calling them treasonous and tweeting 50 times a day? I don't know anybody who tweets that much. So again, this is just the nature of this person. And again, someone just says something about Benghazi. Benghazi was investigated 9 times by partisan Republicans, and they never found anything wrong in Benghazi, ever. It's just and yet you'll still hear Trumpists say Benghazi. It's this Fox News hypnosis. By the way, here's something else that's really, really, really telling at this point. Trump has already, again, you can already see a lot of Republicans in the Senate, in the House, are getting really tired of this. You can see this. He's losing Fox News big time. Even Chris Wallace, all of these shows, this sort of state TV, which is what Fox News is. It's certainly what it has become. The Fox News hosts are also like, if this is true, this is bad. This is really bad. This is not good. And the media is also not equivocating like they had done before. The media is not just allowing, for instance, talking heads to come on both sides of the issue and say anything they want. Yesterday on the news shows, I actually watched a few of the news shows, and the announcers are kind of not having it. You had the sort of Trump apologists come out and start saying, oh, it's this, that, or Joe Biden, or blah, blah, or this or that, or just make things up. And journalists are doing their job, finally, instead of pushing back against the false equivocation, saying, no. By the way, I've said many times, if people want to know my political views, I'm not a fan of any of them. Obama, Hillary Clinton, Trump, none of them. I'm looking to see how they do their job. But it's just very clear that this person is corrupt beyond anything we can imagine. And so it's great to see that the media is also just not there. They seem to be doing their job a lot better at this point, rather than just inviting people to come on and just spout anything. Again, it's also, part of it is different because the Mueller investigation was much different. By the time it came out, it was much easier to just kind of spin it any way you could. This is much harder, and it's going to be harder. And again, people that want to get into the things that can be used to kind of throw smoke in the air, it's not going to work as well this time, because you can see it's also in real time. And the people that are involved are much different. It would have been much different even if they could have brought, let's say, the people that were involved in the Mueller investigation, like McGahn and these other people. They were much more reluctant to talk because they were just talking about obstruction of justice, and it was very vague. This is quite different. This whistleblower, this is very active right now. These are people in government right now. Trump has also made so many enemies. There are people in government right now who have been doing this right now in real time, or who have just recently left. What about someone like John Bolton? You think John Bolton doesn't know these things were going on? Trump got rid of John Bolton and started attacking him. What about these other people who know what has been happening behind the scenes? So there's a lot that can and will be coming out, and it's going to be devastating. I think it's going to be really, really hard for Trump and the regime to sort of maintain their sort of stranglehold on the propaganda that has allowed them to keep the issue front and center, or to keep this sort of, frankly, this sort of craziness going for so long. As Catherine Marie said, he has no allies. Yeah, one of the biggest things that's happened with this guy is you can't burn every single bridge and think that anybody's going to defend you. Okay, he's got Rudy Giuliani. Okay, great. I can't wait to get Rudy Giuliani before and start. And by the way, Giuliani has now been subpoenaed, or at least the documents. He held up his phone and said, I got emails from the State Department saying that they directed me. Look, these people are coming out. They're so dumb. They come out and admit to these crimes, or at least possible crimes. If the State Department had been directing him to go to the Ukraine and try to shake down the president of Ukraine and force the president of Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden, all of this. Again, if you don't understand how this works, this is another country, and that had already been investigated and finished. Again, presidents can suggest certain things, but when you stop the aid or threaten or in some ways try to coerce, this is very problematic. Now, again, even on that call, I'm not saying that, look, I'm more open-minded than people may think. I'm not necessarily even saying that it's a slam dunk, that that's exactly what was happening, even on that call. It's certainly worth an impeachment inquiry, which is happening now, to get to the bottom of that exactly, and to see what they were doing. That's what the impeachment inquiry is, and that's what they're doing now. It's an impeachment inquiry. They haven't voted on articles of impeachment. That's why you start an inquiry. But it certainly doesn't look good. And the point is that as they do more of an inquiry and they start inquiring and subpoenaing people and bringing people, they're going to get to the bottom of this. And yes, it is true that, like, for example, Sheila said, unless you're one of the unpaid contractors. So the thing is, it's possible. Again, this is why I'm talking about the way Trump obviously acts and his level of corruption and double dealing and dishonesty. But again, I'm not saying necessarily that I know that there was an impeachable offense or an impeachable crime or something that happened with this. But it definitely does not look good when you send, quote, your private attorney to go do public government business. This is literally what Rudy Giuliani has admitted to. Again, or however that is, this, works out that way. If you're thinking that that's possible, or that's, perhaps not illegal, then it needs to be investigated. And again, and so Angela's saying, you're a great Vedic astrologer. I think you should interpret the chart and not give your personal opinion. Okay, you can leave then, Angela, if you don't like what I'm saying, you're free to leave. And again, these are my views, but again, my personal opinion, not sure what you mean. I'm talking about what's happening. These are my opinions about what's going on, or my views, but I am talking about the transits and Trump's chart and things that I've talked about before. And if you don't like it, you can leave. That's fine. I said this is what I'm going to be talking about, and that's what I'm talking about. So I think, so what's going to happen, this impeachment inquiry is going to keep going, especially as it gets closer to Trump's, as we see in this chart here. Rahu is at 1922 and Trump's Mercury is at 1545. So Trump's Rahu at 1922 is going to get closer and closer to Trump's Mercury, and it's going to get more and more difficult to maintain this sort of being able to say what you want with like impunity. More disclosures will be coming out, and more of that, we're going to see more disclosures and more erratic communication from him, which is, of course, I think pretty difficult and potentially dangerous for all of us. And I'm going to mention this again, but those who always get upset because they're like, this is my personal opinion. Look, I have views. I state my views. Okay. And again, to say that there's no astrology or there's nothing astrological related, again, instead of that, why don't you say exactly what it is? For those who have these issues, it's always something general. It's never the specifics of what I'm saying. Because what I'm saying specifically is actually just calling out and saying what we're seeing. And again, people just have this idea, which, again, I respect and I hear it, but this idea that, oh, you're an astrologer, you're supposed to just read the chart and not blah, blah. What is it that says that because astrology is not supposed to be dealing with facts? These are facts. I'm speaking about facts. And again, when people don't like the facts, sometimes they say, oh, you're not being objective. If there's something, some facts I'm not being objective about, let's hear them. If it's just, you should be this because I think that, then okay, then that's your opinion. That's your opinion. And what I'm talking about is the facts of what we're seeing and the facts of how this Rahu getting close to Trump's Mercury is definitely being seen, and it's going to continue. I'm also talking about the facts of how the political system works. Everybody doesn't know. So I'm explaining how these things work. And also I am calling out just factually and honestly and openly that this is what's happening. This is who this guy is. This is how this guy's acting. This is how all these people are acting. And to say that that means that it's not astrology or it's not objective or it's whatever is just wrong thinking. It's wrong-headedness. And I'm sorry, but I do think that. I don't think there's anything contradictory about speaking facts and astrology, showing the facts. So let's see. Governmental policy with respect to rise, agencies for an office, work, research. Okay. I'm just looking at this because your statement is moot and you have no idea what you are saying. So before you talk about governmental policies within respect, okay, so again, I just said about 1,000 things, and this person who calls themselves the truth did not say one specific thing. So again, this is always what it is. I just said about, no, I'm just calling it out here, and I am going to get back on track in a second, but I want people to see this as well. On this thing so far, I've said about, I don't know, maybe 200 specific things, one specific thing after the next. I explained how whistleblower works. I explained the blah, blah, blah. I explained all this specifically. And someone said not me. Okay. But okay, good. So, but again, if there is something that I say that's not accurate, then people should call me. Then people should call me out on it. Please go ahead and do it. Please go ahead and call me out on it if I say something that's not accurate. But again, when there's this kind of conceptual, oh, it's not objective, then that's what we should notice. And again, I'm not just saying it because I want to argue with the trolls or whatever. I'm speaking about things this way because it is part of the cycle that we're in. It's part of the cycle that we're in is we need to start talking about these things honestly and not be afraid. And when we speak about these things specifically, I mean, literally like say, here are the things that are happening and we can see them. Notice that usually when the criticism comes back, it's something very general, very much like, oh, these facts that you're stating, which again is very Rahu and Gemini, these facts you are stating upset me and my beliefs, because I believe in deep state. I believe in Trump. I believe in this. I believe this thing, and all of your facts and your specific details don't make me happy. So because I believe this, I'm going to now attack you and say, oh, you're not objective. Again, this is always the criticism, never the specific things I'm saying. Now, again, I'm not trying to defend myself. I'm letting you see it as well, that this is how it comes back in your mind as well. Notice how this is the danger when you do call things out. And I'm sure that those of you here who do call things out in your life, when you talk about something specific, what people do is they just don't like it, or their criticisms are these generalities about, you should be more blah, blah. So the point is, now, if we look at Giuliani's chart as well, we can see Giuliani also has Saturn in Gemini as well. So Rahu is also getting close to his Rahu is also getting close to his Saturn. As you can see, Rahu is over here. It's at 19, and he has Saturn in his 10th house in Gemini as well. So Rudy Giuliani is a Virgo ascendant. This looks to be an accurate chart as well. So he has a Virgo ascendant, and Saturn is in his 10th house. Saturn, when he was born, was in his 10th house. And so Rahu is going through his 10th house, Rudy Giuliani right now. And look, does this look like somebody having a Rahu going through his 10th house moment, Rudy? So again, Rahu is about the confusion. The 10th house is about the public. And Rahu is getting closer to his natal Saturn, also in his 10th house. So it's very much a, we can see Rudy Giuliani's public sort of confusion and his whole thing going on. And it's sad to see Rudy Giuliani acting the way he is. I mean, but again, we can't have this guy doing this stuff, though. We can't have this private government going around shaking down presidents of other countries and all this stuff just to benefit President Trump's politics. We saw today in the news that apparently there was a similar thing with Australia, with the Australian president trying to get him to go back and discredit the original, not Mueller investigation, the original FBI investigation into his campaign. There was a news story just earlier today where he was also, perhaps doing this with the president of Australia. Again, we can't have this kind of stuff. So again, we're going to see more and more of this, and especially as the move forward with the Gochara here. So this is the current chart here as well. And if we move this forward, let's say, I'll just move it forward weeks. You see that Saturn and Ketu are right on top of each other right now too. So again, we're seeing this pressure of justice. Pressure is Saturn and Ketu of justice. Justice, which is Sagittarius, right? So Saturn and Ketu right on top of each other right now, 19 degrees. But as we move this forward, you see Saturn is going to start separating more. Whoops, move it here. Saturn is going to start separating more. And you see it starts to move here, 16, Saturn 21. That's by the end of October. And then by early November, Jupiter is going to be in Sagittarius. So again, we're going to see early November, we could really see a big shift. And I think it's pretty obvious that he will be, that the House is going to pass articles of impeachment. And let's see the disclosures that come out to see what happens with the Senate. But again, this is going to pop and look a lot worse, because again, what happened with the Mueller investigation? They were investigating things that were old from a long time ago, and it was mainly triggered by what looked to be the president obstructing justice by firing James Comey. That's what actually even triggered the Mueller investigation. They did wind up finding what looked to be obstruction of justice by Trump, but they never picked up on it. That was a lot more vague. This is not as vague by any means as well. And Praveen said you have to connect to USA chart as well. That's a good point, but I'm not so confident in the USA chart, especially that 6 o'clock timing. That 6 p.m. timing for the USA chart. I've never really trusted that, so that's always a little bit tricky. And so Angela Oliver says, facts, Australia doesn't have a president. We have a prime minister. That's great. Prime minister, not president. Okay. Angela, I'm glad you're here. You seem to want to just point out things like this. So that's great. That's fine. And you're also the one who said that I should read the chart and not give my opinion. So, again, I'm glad you're here. I'm not, you seem to want to just sort of correct or something, but that's fine. Yeah. So there's a lot that's going on here, and I think that that we could very well see that whether he gets impeached in the Senate or not is hard to know. I have a feeling, though, that it's going to be much closer to having justice be served, whatever that looks like. And I have a feeling that things could shift very quickly. And we could see a lot of evidence that is harder and harder for Republicans to back up. And again, a couple other things, because I do know politics. And again, people who aren't American or aren't interested in the politics, maybe you should just not listen, because I can see why it's not interesting to you. And then you can just come out and say, oh, you're not reading charts or whatever. But the point of the matter is this is what I'm talking about here. But I say this because knowing U.S. politics, everything is a calculus. The Republicans have been tolerating Trump this whole time because of his support, because their voters support him. But if you start to see people keep acting like there's absolutely no way that could ever lose support, you know what? This is just simply not true. I mean, what if it comes out and maybe there's a recording or something comes out of him literally on the phone with Vladimir Putin talking about some business deal or some kind of incredibly corrupt and illegal thing, or any kinds of disclosure like this. Again, even the political calculus would get so hard that, we don't know what could come out. We just don't know. There is so much that's being hidden. What if you get recordings of Saudi Arabia and him saying, and you hear the president of the prime minister of Saudi Arabia, or whatever the head of the country is, it's the prince or the king's son coming out and saying, yeah, we understand what happened with Khashoggi, or even sort of, denying it, but then some kind of deal where it's like, but we'll make sure to have our people stay in your hotels. And again, you heard one of the things to me that's just astounding, that's been even glossed over, is hearing the president of the Ukraine groveling to Trump about, oh, don't worry, sir, we stayed in your hotels and it was really great. We stayed in your hotel. All these world leaders kissing his ass by staying in his hotels. This is disgusting. It's disgusting that a president is doing this. And this part of the story, I hope get more publicity. Because I think one of the biggest problems, and I said it at the beginning of his presidency, was the corruption, his personal enrichment, and his family enriching himself. By the way, they should be really careful about what they wish for about Joe Biden and his son, okay? Because you want to talk about families benefiting from their public fathers. Let's open that can of worms really carefully. Trump has not divested himself of business at all. I said this at the beginning of his presidency, that I thought that would be a big problem, that it would be a lot of legal trouble, and that it could very much revolve around his family businesses. I said it at the beginning. But again, you could hear him on these phone calls just enriching himself and cutting deals and doing all kinds of stuff. Why do you think these people at the White House, his White House, have been hiding these calls? Why do you think that is? These are his appointees. And there was a whistleblower who was part of his White House. So again, this whole idea that it's somehow deep state, blah, blah, this is his White House. And I think probably some people finally had enough. First of all, finally had enough and said, this is so corrupt that they're taking things that are supposed to only be hidden on private servers due to top level and top secret information, and they're doing it simply to protect the president's corruption. And they had enough, and they filed this whistleblower complaint, and it is obviously legitimate because it was approved all the way up the chain of command of his appointees. There's nothing illegitimate about this, and this is happening right now. These are hot activities that implicates the Department of Justice, Bill Barr, Rudy Giuliani, Mike Pompeo. We just found out the Secretary of Defense was on one of these calls, at least one. These people need to be hauled before the impeachment committee and asked questions under oath, under threat of perjury and impeachment, or and imprisonment. So Trump has, this is not getting smaller, especially now we're finding out Pompeo was on the calls. Look at all these other people. William Barr, the Justice Department, they're involved in the cover-up. So again, you have to understand this is just, this could spread huge. And this is what it looks like, again, coming back to the astrology, with very clearly the transit of Rahu going over Trump's Mercury. Look at how his communication, how erratic it has gone just in the last couple weeks, just since Rahu entered Ardra, which was a couple weeks ago. So brace for impact, strap in there. So if people have some questions, I can look at them here. This was a lot to kind of get through. So it says the truth, his staff out-called transcripts on private servers to pre-order Trump from embarrassment and wrongdoing. It's, yeah, I think you mean to protect him. Yeah, it's to protect him. So they're putting things on top secret servers just to protect him from probably his wrongdoing and his corruption. They're realizing, man, these calls, you can't be saying this stuff. You can't be shaking down the heads of other countries. And see, look, I'm going to say this as well. And again, this is the stuff people don't like, but I'm going to say it, and I don't like saying it, but it's true. Trump's biggest problem is he's stupid. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's dumb. He's dumb about this stuff especially. If he had any common sense and any brain, he would not have released the transcripts of those calls. Now, you might say it shows how transparent he is. It also shows how dumb he is, because the transcripts of those calls show exactly why they were being hidden and why they were being obfuscated, because this is damaging stuff. And there's probably worse stuff. That was one call. This whistleblower said there were numerous calls. There's who knows how many transcripts or recordings are on record. And now when you open a formal impeachment inquiry, you subpoena those records, and they have to come before the committee. And you subpoena the people that were involved. They already issued a subpoena to Mike Pompeo and to Giuliani and these other people. And they need to appear. They subpoenaed the records, and they need to appear and show what's going on. Now, what's going to happen, like I said, I think, is you're going to start seeing the rats turn on each other. William Barr already said, I had nothing to do with it. He already said, I didn't know anything about it. Pompeo even tried to say, I didn't know anything about it, and now we find out that he was on one of the calls. Giuliani says, the Justice Department told me to do it. The Justice Department said, we didn't tell him to do it. The guy who was in the Justice Department, the envoy for Ukraine, resigned right after Rudy Giuliani went on one of those nutty Fox shows and said, I got it on my phone. I got the emails on my phone of the Justice Department telling me to do it. The next day, that person resigned. What do you think they're going to say? You think they're going to say, oh, yeah, it was all great? Let's wait and see what these people are going to say. And of course, what will happen is these people are going to start talking, and then Trump will just attack them. This person was a loser anyway. This person was a Hillary supporter, whatever. It's going to be the same crap show from him, but this is not going to play anymore. This is not the same. This isn't going to be, you just can't say witch hunt about this. There are too many people whose skin is in the game right now. Too many people who are in legal jeopardy right now for things they have just done, things that are still happening. It's not like, well, you can't prove this thing that might have happened 3 years ago, which was the Mueller investigation. You'll just run out the clock. This is very different. And so again, this is being shown in the astrology. This isn't just I'm explaining the politics for people who maybe aren't following it. But yes, this is shown by the transits, by a couple very important transits that we're seeing, which is Rahu going over his Mercury in Gemini. This is his chart. Then you also have, again, this is by the middle end of November, Jupiter is going into Sagittarius. Yes, Ketu and Saturn will still be there, but they'll be moving. Ketu is going to be approaching. And again, to think that, again, I can see why right now people say, well, the Republicans are never going to actually charge him in the Senate. Maybe not now, based on what we know now, but maybe a month of this. How much more damaging? Imagine a month from now what the disclosures are going to look like. And by the way, a month from now, look at where Rahu is. Rahu is 14. Go back and see the exact conjunction of Rahu on Trump's Mercury is going to be around early November. Look, Trump 1545. This is his Mercury. 1545. Rahu in the sky hits that at like early mid-November. So between now and early mid-November, watch out, boy. Watch out. And watch Trump melt down, man. You think he's been melting down? You think it's been bad? You watch and see what's going to happen now. This is going to get ugly. Ugly. Amy Eager. I am totally with you there, hon. Tulsi Gabbard is the one. I've said it before. Tulsi Gabbard. Let's see. But again, here's the thing is that, again, this is why I'm talking about it in this regard. I started talking about it with Rahu and Ardra, and it got more political. So that's why I made this, just said politics, all this impeachment. That's what this is going to be about. At least so watch this. Again, aside from all the drama and the triggering, again, this is a great way that we can learn from astrology as well. You're seeing it play out. You're seeing it. As soon as Rahu goes into Ardra, formal impeachment, and then as it's getting closer to his Mercury, it's getting more and more and more. I said a while ago when I talked about Rahu and Ardra, go back and watch the video. I have a long talk about Trump and how it was. I even mentioned we could see some disclosures of confidential information that he's disclosed to foreign leaders or other kinds of things that will come out that he's said. He's going to get even more erratic, and we're seeing it. So, a few other people say, it says, Trump releasing the transcripts is big-time Rahu over his Mercury. He wasn't thinking. Yeah. Well, here's the thing that happened. Again, this is why I'm also saying people that it's very easy to have this idea that, well, Trump is always going to come out on top. He's always going to win. It's always going to be this. Look, there are specific reasons why that's happened. So you've got to look at everything separately and look at how this is different. The reason he disclosed that, like I said, well, I said it earlier, because the Republicans met with him and pressured him. I know this because before he disclosed it, he said, I had a great meeting with the Republican leadership, and we agreed that I would release the transcript of the call. Do you really think he agreed? What happened is Kevin McCarthy, who was the Republican minority leader, said, you got to release this. Listen, it's very clear that Republicans are already kind of drawing a line. And they're not necessarily drawing a line because of morality. I'm not going to give them that much credit. They're drawing a line because Trump is not popular. He's melting down even more and more. And they will cut Trump loose like that as soon as they don't think they need him anymore. The only reason Trump is even still in power, in my opinion, are two reasons. Fox News and the Republicans in the House and Senate covering for him. As soon as he loses either one in a major way, he'll probably lose the other. He's already starting to lose Fox News as well. Sean Hannity will never leave him. Laura Ingraham or but much of the rest of Fox News is already like, boy, if this is true, this is really bad. What if it's shown to be not just true, but one of about 10 or let's say 3 or 4 more examples of something just like this? You think that's not possible? Of course it's possible. And what would these Republicans say? Are they going to not vote if he will definitely be impeached in the House? This goes to the Senate. And again, we already saw even in the polls today I just saw, it's almost 50% of the country now supports impeachment. 2 months ago, it was like 35%. Wasn't even close. It's gone up about 15% in the last couple weeks. It's only going to get worse. So as soon as he looks like a liability for the 2020 election or whatever, they will cut him loose. And they will do just like what happened to Nixon. Nixon was impeached. Nixon wasn't formally impeached. He resigned. And he resigned when the Republicans went to him and said, you need to resign or you're going to get impeached. You can't survive this now. This is too bad. We're going to vote to impeach you. So Nixon resigned. That is absolutely possible in this situation, I think. I don't know if I think it's going to happen. I'm not sure. But it doesn't look good. It already doesn't look good. We'll see what happens. But it could definitely turn. The tide could definitely turn here. And I say this also just based on what I know about politics in the system and what's been going on. And this astrology is definitely showing it. It's definitely showing that, again, the next few months and into the next year, especially as Jupiter Ketu goes through Sagittarius, and again, more disclosures and all this kind of stuff comes out. Again, that's definitely shown by this Jupiter Ketu. Again, this is in November, but then we go forward December. Again, Jupiter Ketu is going to close almost exact here by let's say by the end of this year. This is December 23rd. There's also an eclipse in Sagittarius. Around this time, we'll have this eclipse. I think might even be December, might even be Christmas Day. Again, this is just, the clock ticking. And there could be more and more disclosures, more and more. Again, what happened in Watergate and in the Nixon era was Nixon then started telling people like in the Justice Department to do things that were illegal, and they started resigning. You start seeing people resign and not carry out these illegal orders, and then again, you start seeing the wheels fall off. So these kinds of things you could see some crazy things happen and unraveling really, really fast. So all of these things are being shown by the transit. So it said, I think Clinton didn't resign because it wasn't clear that he'd been removed. So Clinton didn't resign because he wasn't. Look, what happened with Clinton was the House voted for impeachment, and then the Senate didn't. So the Senate needs 2/3 of majority to vote for impeachment, and the Senate didn't. So again, impeachment is a two-step process. We're now in the first step of an inquiry. So what happened in Watergate, you had the Watergate hearings. The Watergate hearings were conducted in the House of Representatives. They're doing a hearing. It's a trial, basically, or it's information gathering. And in the House, they subpoenaed information and brought forth witnesses to then vote to impeach or not impeach. So right now in the House hasn't voted to impeach him yet. There is no impeachment. They've opened an inquiry. It's an impeachment inquiry. I predict they are going to vote to impeach. I hope they wait and let it go for a while and get a lot of evidence. That's what they should do. They should wait and gather and bring a lot of people to get a lot of evidence before they vote. Then they're going to vote to impeach, and then it goes to the Senate. Then the Senate has to vote whether or not to remove him from office. So it's like the courtroom is the House, but then the jury is the Senate. The Senate then decides, then they need a 2/3 majority to decide to remove him from office. So what happened with Clinton is the House impeached, and then the Senate did not have the votes to remove him from office. It simply wasn't that serious of an offense. He lied about sex, basically. They say there was a cover-up. This is a total different ballgame. With Nixon, they ratified articles of impeachment in the House, and what happened in the Senate was the Republican senators, they know how to count votes. Mitch McConnell knows how many people would vote right now. He knows. They all know. They know how to count votes. And it was Senator, I think it was Barry Goldwater, went up to the White House and said, "Mr. President, you need to resign or you're going to be impeached. We have the votes. We're going to impeach you. So don't make us vote to impeach you. Instead, resign." So Nixon resigned rather than have the formal articles of impeachment, which would remove him. With Clinton in the Senate, there wasn't enough votes. So what's happening right now with Trump is they've opened the inquiry. I'm almost certain they're going to vote to impeach. And then it goes to the Senate, and the Senate will either convict or not. And again, what I'm saying right now is people say, well, there's no way the Senate's going to convict right now. And I think that's obviously true. But who knows in 2 months? What are they going to find? How far is too far? What if they have him on the phone telling the guys in Saudi Arabia, make sure to go to my Trump hotel, make sure to do this, or he discloses secret information to Putin. We already know he gave away top secret information to Russians in the Oval Office. Again, people's hair should be on fire. These guys, his crimes, his idiocy has been so normalized, we don't even notice anymore. What if he's, again, why are his aides hiding these phone calls? Is it because they're great? Or as Trump would say, perfect phone calls? No. He's doing all kinds of crazy stuff, if not highly illegal, highly corrupt. And so they're trying to protect him by saying that it's classified, top secret, when it's not. These are not classified calls. It's just him being a lunatic, something that's not legal for a reason. He works for the people. And again, what disheartens me are these people that just blindly follow Trump or any political figure. They are employees. They're not a king. They're not your spiritual leader. They are doing a job. And they are not doing the job by hiring their personal attorney to go shake down someone in another country, or all of this stuff that's just using their office and our tax money for their personal gain. And again, this is why our system is set up to root out this kind of corruption. And this whistleblower realized that this stuff is going on. And so far, everything they said has been borne out to be true. And that was just the tip of the iceberg. So we'll see where it goes from here. They're all Asurs, and it's been going on forever. Just different names and faces. Same crooked game. Yeah. And, we're talking about this now. And, I don't always talk about this, but when I do, I get into it. I'm also very interested in it. I'm interested in the world and politics and how this stuff works. And we can see how all this plays out. Astrology, this is actually a great use of astrology. And it's unfortunate sometimes that people, the reason I explained it in this video as well about, look, don't get into this idea that, well, it's not objective to talk about facts as an astrologer or whatever. I get this stuff. Look, facts are always good to use in astrology. Astrology will show you the facts. They will show you the timing and the facts and then this and then that. You're seeing, I'm just talking about what we're seeing here. It's not even a lot of opinions. I mean, I certainly have them, but you can see in these events how astrology is playing out. And again, what winds up happening is the bias, especially in this day and age that we need to be careful of, is in the reverse. It's the people that are going like this. I don't want to see, I don't want to hear, I don't want to see or hear anything that the dear leader is doing that I don't like. And just stating what we all see is somehow bias and fake news or something. Again, this is the real problem. Having this blind worship for the dear leader that so many have fallen under. And again, this is that negative Saturn, Ketu, and Sagittarius stuff. This blind worship for the dear leader that I'm going to believe what you say because I'm afraid, and even as it revolves around fear. This is why so much of what Trump does especially is try to divide around our fears. You're the one who can save us from the foreigners or the Dems or the deep state or all this stuff going on. It ain't going to work. Again, because the Saturn K2 is going to separate. Jupiter is coming in behind it as well. And Jupiter is like, no, wait a minute. There ain't no deep state here. We got the calls, we got the goods, we got the receipts. I'm going to go back to what I said when I said Rahu was going into Gemini. I said it back then in March. We're going to get the truth. We're going to see the truth. And it will be harder to maintain all of these childish illusions that we have about our dear leaders and our things we're blindly following. With Rahu and Gemini, it's going to show us the truth that will be challenging those things. So you see it tracking with one of these figures who is very much right at the center of it, Trump, and that Rahu and Gemini going right over his Mercury. So if anyone's got any more ideas, I haven't been watching the comments, so I wonder, are people yelling at me? Amy, thanks for your insights. The truth. Yes, that's what we're doing. The truth's not that hard. Okay, so this person, Trump brought back God in all his presidency. Push to fight abortions, push to get unemployment down. Okay, well, that's what you think, and okay, that's great. I'm glad you like him. He's your president. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. That's what you think. I don't think anyone is yelling at you. Okay, that's all right. They will be later, but that's okay. No, the reason that I bring these things up too is, again, it's less about me as well, and I'm really trying to make sure that, especially in this world right now, because it's so easy, because we have such a trolling culture. We have such a culture where there's, trolling and this false equivalence and this equivocating where we can't see through propaganda and whatnot. So, one second. And so, that's a lot of why I also talk about these things in a larger sense. And yeah, Shiva Kami said, yeah, unemployment is down only for the top percent. It's a screwed statistic. If you look at the data, you can see actual unemployment for lower class. It's very easy to skew numbers. And as Shiva Kami is saying here, there's so many ways. Like, for example, let's give a perfect example that's also used as well. Unemployment figures is one. The other one is the stock market is booming. That is not a good metric for the health of the economy. It's the worst metric, because this means the 1% of 1% are richer than ever. Okay. So how many people's lives, how many people here are really lives are so improved by the stock market? But let's be really clear. Do you know how much Trump supporters who are, let's be honest, and it's not to be insulting, it's just demographics. We have demographic data. It's mostly older white people, mostly, like 90%. And in fact, Trump won old white people, I think like 75% of old white people. Most of them uneducated, I should say uneducated older white people. How many of them are really living the high life because of the stock market? Not many of them. But yet, how many of them, I don't know how many times the Trump supporters that troll me will be like, but the stock market is great. Of course, it's some anonymous troll. And I'm like, right. And I'm sure the stock market is really benefiting you, right? Probably not. But they're just repeating talking points that the dear leader has said. For example, these kinds of things. That's just not using our discrimination, because in their mind, this is the guy that they think is the one. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, you know, to like a political figure or whatever. But when we deify these people who are political figures, they're here to do jobs. They're here to do a job. And because we lack such a spiritual connection and a spiritual core, we project that onto these political figures, and we attach like our whole faith to them. Oh, they're here. They're great people. They're going to save. All of them are corrupt, money hungry, power hungry people for the most part. You definitely find some who have a much purer heart. Not, I shouldn't say all of them, but most of them. You can see the pure hearts. I think Bernie Sanders has a pretty pure heart. You can just see. Yeah, I think Tulsi Gabbard for sure. There are definitely ones, and there's some Republicans as well. Again, I don't like to paint people with a broad brush. And the biggest problem is the system itself. The system is so corrupt that it needs to be fixed. Giant corporations buy off politicians. That's the biggest problem. Even a good person will be utterly corrupted by the system itself. So good people don't get into the system. The ones that get into the system are the corrupted ones, because the system itself is so corrupted. So these are the things that need to shift and change. And by the way, Trump exploited all this. Trump knows this. And that's why he said he's going to drain the swamp. And then he became the biggest swamp creature this country has ever seen by far. And yet you have people that voted him in, voting totally against their own interests, saying, drain the swamp. Here he is, draining the swamp. Meanwhile, he is totally getting wealthy off the office like no one ever has. So again, it's time for the truth of these things to come out. And by the way, the Republicans in charge and in office also know this. But the reason they don't do anything is because of their political interest and their desire for power, because their voters still like Trump. But we could see some of that shift and some of that change, especially if they think he's going to lose anyway. Again, here's the other thing, the last thing that I'll talk about here. If they think that Trump is going to lose in 2020 anyway, they're done with him. Forget it. Impeach him. They'd be fine with it. If they think he's going to lose anyway and drag the party down and drag them down, that's their entire calculus. It has nothing to do with whether they think he's right or wrong. You wonder, how can they be so immoral as to not care about all of his corruption? Because they want to get reelected and keep their jobs in Congress. This is why they will come on and say anything, because it's in their interest. But as soon as they think that he's going to lose, they will cut him loose. The people that say Trump's chart that he'll get reelected, we don't know that for sure. We never know who he's running against. So no one knows this at this point. So, all right. So we're going to leave it at that. This thing is Gandanta like a swamp, say at the tip of Scorpio where Jupiter's about to go. Not really. I wouldn't look at it like that or try to draw that connection. So we could definitely have some we have to see how everything shakes out. Look, Trump could definitely be reelected. There's no question. You could see in his chart how he could have been elected in 2016, and you could definitely see how he could get reelected in 2020 for sure. But we don't know yet. We don't have his opponent yet. You always have to compare the two charts of the opponents. I didn't do a formal prediction in 2020 because I wasn't confident of Hillary Clinton's birth chart. Some people did. And some people did predict Trump. Most people predicted Hillary. I actually stayed out of the actual prediction. I talked about it more earlier, thinking just for non-political. First of all, I always said that he could definitely get elected because you could see he was in Mars Rahu. But again, that's not unusual because anyone who is that close will have the potential to get elected. You're talking about two kings when you're talking about an actual election. Or someone that close. Once he got the nomination, he could certainly be elected because he's one of two people. And you're talking about a very small margins here. And so I didn't have Hillary Clinton's birth time, so I didn't really know. And again, it's not a cop-out. It's just the way I did it. And I've predicted the last three correctly, the two Obamas, and then even the last George Bush. But this one I wasn't confident because we didn't have her birth time. So I was mainly at the end of the last election saying, listen, people, Trump could definitely win because there were so many people saying, he'll never win. He'll never win. I was going, wait a second, you people better wake up. He could definitely win, especially liberals who were saying, the fix is in. She's going to win. He'll never win. Vote Jill Stein. This kind of stuff. These people that were just knocking on Hillary the whole time about how she was the worst thing ever and Trump will never win anyway, so just vote for Jill Stein. I kept telling these people, he can definitely win. He could definitely win with those dashas he has, especially some kind of weird, confusing, even corrupt way. He was in Mars Rahu. I'm sorry, Rahu Mars. He could definitely win. By the way, one of the ways he could definitely win this time is through corruption and through stealing the election. There is no question. By the way, that's the thing. That's the way I think he could win. Is by all the stuff you see him trying to do right now, which is do it illegally or voting machines or literally stealing it somehow or not acknowledging it or a close election and him saying I won and creating this whole confusion around it when he clearly lost. And that absolutely is, from where I'm standing, probably the most likely way that he would win because I don't think he would win a popular vote or even electoral college. I say this mainly politically because he's got a record now to run on and he's deeply unpopular, especially amongst independents, which are the ones that he won. Now he has a record, but you never know. And I would not leave it to the Democrats to run like Elizabeth Warren and have her just bungle her way to a defeat, or Bernie Sanders or anybody else. The Democrats could certainly get in there and bungle it beyond imagination. There's no question. But I think it's not just I think. There is data for these kinds of things. First of all, he lost the last one by 3 million votes. He ran it against the most unpopular person ever, except him. And he still lost by 3 million votes, and he had no record. And so a lot of people gave him a benefit of the doubt, especially independents. And now he's lost independence. He started losing independence as soon as he became president. You look at the polling among independents, and I think he's like 70-30 losing against anybody else. So he's done nothing but shrink his base, nothing but shrink, polarize, and get less and less. Plus, he has a record to run on, which only the most indoctrinated old educated white person is still with Trump, for the most part. By the way, again, it's not being insulting. We have the data. We know who it was. It was old, uneducated white people. He won them going away. That's why he's president. And especially in 3 states, he managed to eke out 70,000 extra votes in 3 states to win the Electoral College. And he won independents overwhelming. These are the reasons. And he's already lost independents, and that other base is shrinking. his numbers amongst young people are terrible. It's like 70-30. People under 30 years old have said they will never vote for Donald Trump in, I think it's like 65-35. That's devastating. That's people under 30. Most of the polling says that they've come out and said they would never vote for him. That doesn't mean you don't like him. They would be like me under no circumstances. This is people under 30, like 70, I think it's 65-35, would never under any circumstances vote. That's devastating numbers. So anyway, but this is polling data. But again, we have a corrupt, rigged system, and he will corrupt and rig it any way he possibly could and try to get away with it. There is no question about that either. And that could happen. He made a tweet today about if he were impeached, it would be civil war. Not even close. He's nowhere near popular enough to have, that would not even ever come close. We'd have civil war, though, if he got decimated in the next election and he stole it and tried to hang it up. And now that he's packed the court with Republicans, I mean, that, now you're talking. That could happen. That could happen. But I don't think there's any way I don't think he'll get the votes. Again, that's not an educated, don't quote me on, oh, Sam said Trump's, this is just, I'm speaking mainly politically here. But based on the demographics and polling that we see. And it's the same polling that did hold up. That did hold up in the last election. So, anyway, so the Asuras, other stuff. Oh, another Chris. Chris says the blacks and now Hispanics love him. Okay. Keep the hope alive, brother. They love him. Sure they do. They don't, by the way. The numbers, polling data, not even close on that level. So anyway, not going to get to all that. So anyway, folks, hope this was fun. I just thought I'd talk about the what's going on here, especially with this transit of Rahu getting very close to Trump's Mercury, and watch the craziness ensue for the next couple months. We could have some big shifts going on. IOX says, get out of your left-wing shell in California. I guess you live in Iowa, huh? Well, you can thank all of us left-wingers in California for paying for half of your federal programs. People love to diss on California, especially in these smaller states where, you know, California is the 5th largest economy in the world, and that includes paying for most of the programs in the country, including Iowa. So you're welcome. My left-wing bubble is just fine. Oh, is it bullshit? No, it's not. There's the thing called data. Anyway, so I hope you guys have a good one. And again, keep your eyes open to propaganda, and don't be afraid to speak truth, call it out, and be aware of false equivalence and all that kind of stuff. This is Rahu in Gemini, and all of the stuff that's going on now with the Saturn Ketu shifting is big. Jupiter is coming. We'll see as Jupiter goes into Sagittarius, especially in November. We will see a real reckoning of justice come forth, and I think it's going to shift a lot of things that, a lot of the darkness and the fear, and those who prey on fear, try to manipulate through fear. There's going to be more expansiveness, more like, okay, you know what, climate science is real. You know what, let's stop just, fake news isn't fake and facts aren't fake and la la la. Again, all of this, I think we're in for a much better and a more gracious relationship with the truth. Even those who are triggered will start to start to get more understanding and awareness that, the idea that, well, the stock market's great, so economy's great, and I'm doing great. Again, all of this propaganda will start to mean less. So we'll see what we get, and you all take care.